The letter slips from Theodore's trembling fingers, his breath caught in his throat. He had everything: wealth, power, influence. But this he never saw coming. Theodore, I'm sorry to burden you with this after so many years, but I don't have much time left. You have a daughter. Her name is Seraphina, and she's 16. She needs to meet you before I die. The words echo in his mind as his grip tightens on the paper, the reality of what he's reading crashing down like a tidal wave. A daughter? His daughter? He swallows, staring at the signature, Jasmine. He remembers her, but he never imagined this. How could I have missed this? His voice cracks, hollow and fragile. The empire he built, the life he thought was complete, is suddenly nothing more than a mask, hiding a painful truth he can no longer escape. Theodore Jennings, the CEO of a multi-million-dollar grocery chain in Florida, is a man who has built his entire existence on control. His life has always been about power, about being untouchable. A cold, calculated businessman, he never let anyone close enough to challenge that control. He pushed love aside, focusing instead on the empire he'd spent years creating. Now, as he stares at the letter, his life crumbles. A woman from his past, a woman he once loved and let go, is dying, and she's leaving him with the one thing he can't ignore: the child he never knew existed. The letter threatens to break everything Theodore thought he knew about himself. His empire, his success, none of it matters in this moment. A daughter? He has a daughter, and he's running out of time. What kind of man is he, really? The man who walked away from love? The man who never looked back? The man who hid behind his power? Theodore knows one thing: this is no longer about business. This is about redemption. But can he fix what's been broken for years? Welcome back, my family. I'm truly happy to have you here again today. Thank you for your support, your kindness, and your beautiful comments. They're the reason I keep creating these stories every single day. Before we begin, I want to speak a quick blessing over everyone watching. I'm wishing you peace in your mind, strength in your spirit, and favor in everything your hands touch. May your home be filled with calm, protection, and unexpected blessings. And from my heart to yours, Merry Christmas in advance. May this season bring you healing, joy, and new beginnings. If you're watching and you haven't subscribed yet, please take a moment to do so. Your subscription, your likes, and your shares to friends and family help this channel grow and stay alive. And I would truly love for you to be part of this journey with us. Now, thank you again for being here. Let's get into today's story. The story of how Theodore Jennings ended up here, isolated, alone, and now facing a daughter he's never met, begins long before this letter. It begins with a decision one made years ago, when he chose success over love, when he pushed away the woman who once held his heart, and in doing so, unknowingly created the world he must now face. Theodore leans back in his chair, the letter still in his hands, but his mind is miles away. He's no longer in his high-rise office overlooking the Florida skyline. Instead, his thoughts drift back to a time when he was a younger man, a time when love seemed like a possibility, before he built the empire that now defines him. He remembers the first time he saw Jasmine. It was a warm evening in Miami, the city alive with lights and laughter. She was standing outside a small cafe, her laugh light and contagious as she spoke with a friend. Theodore had been drawn to her immediately, though he would never admit it. She was everything he wasn't: unguarded, free, full of life. She had a way of making everything seem effortless, even love. They'd spent the next few weeks wrapped in a whirlwind. Dinner dates, long conversations, lazy walks along the beach. Theodore at first had been cautious, unsure of how to let someone in. But Jasmine had chipped away at his walls. She was patient, understanding, and made him feel things he hadn't known he could feel. Things beyond business, beyond profit margins. He recalls how her touch had always been warm, her eyes constantly filled with a curiosity that felt genuine. She didn't care about his wealth or his title. She cared about him, the man behind the suits and the board meetings. For the first time in his life, Theodore had felt like he was truly seen, truly known. But then came the moment that would change everything. The phone call from his father, telling him that the company was on the brink of a merger that could change the family's future. Theodore had always known that his father's approval meant everything. He had been groomed for success from a young age, and now, with the stakes higher than ever, the choice seemed simple. It wasn't about love. Not for Theodore, not in that moment. He told Jasmine about the opportunity, about how he needed to go to New York to seal the deal. She understood, of course. She always did. But there was something in her eyes when she nodded that day, something that told him she wasn't just accepting his absence. She was starting to doubt him, starting to see the truth of who he was. "I'll wait for you," she said, her voice steady, but the sadness in her eyes unmistakable. And so he went. He left for New York, fully immersed in the merger and the chance to prove himself to his father, his family, his future. Days turned to weeks, and weeks turned into months. Theodore's calls became less frequent, his visits non-existent. He was building an empire, after all, an empire that would eventually swallow every ounce of space in his life. By the time he finally returned to Miami, the apartment they had shared was empty. The messages from Jasmine had stopped coming. He called her once, maybe twice, but she never answered. And so Theodore did what he had always done. He buried the guilt, ignored the weight of his decisions, and threw himself into his work. He never saw her again. Now, as he sits in his office, the weight of everything he had chosen presses down on him like a crushing force. All those years of climbing, all those years of pushing forward without looking back, they had led him to this moment, a moment where everything seemed meaningless. His wealth, his status, the empire he had built, they felt hollow now, empty, in a way he had never allowed himself to realize. Jasmine hadn't just left him. She had left with something far more important than any business deal, their daughter. Theodore had no idea. He didn't know she was pregnant, didn't know that she had carried their child through months of solitude, all while he built his kingdom on the back of others' sacrifices. Jasmine, the woman he had loved, had never asked for anything. She had never demanded his time or attention, and when she found herself pregnant with his child, she had made the hardest decision of her life, one that would keep her and their daughter away from him forever. He leans forward in his chair, the letter still in his hands as the full weight of it crashes into him. Seraphina, a name he had never heard, a daughter he never knew existed. Theodore's mind drifts to what he imagines Jasmine's life must have been like after he left. The nights spent alone, the pressure of raising a child by herself with no father to rely on. Did she ever think about him? Did she ever resent him for the choice he had made? Did she curse his name when Seraphina asked where her father was? A part of Theodore wonders if Jasmine had tried to reach out to him at some point, if there had been a moment when she hoped he would come running back, ready to make up for the years he had abandoned her. But now, with Jasmine's death looming just months away, those questions seemed irrelevant. She had chosen to protect Seraphina from the chaos of his life, from his family, from everything he had become. That choice, Theodore realizes, has led him here, facing the wreckage of his past, the daughter he never knew, and a woman's final wish that he come and meet the child he should have raised. Theodore runs a hand over his face, feeling the weight of his mistakes pressing down on him. 5 months. That's how long he has to fix everything. 5 months to meet a daughter who has lived her life without him, to make up for years of silence, neglect, and absence. Theodore takes a deep breath and looks out the window at the city that sprawls beneath him. So much power, so much wealth, and yet, in this moment, he feels smaller than he's ever felt. He wonders if it's too late. He wonders if Seraphina will even want to meet him. What if she's angry? What if she doesn't need him? And then, something shifts inside him. What if she does need him? What if this is his chance to undo the damage he's done? What if this is the moment that could change everything? Theodore's mind races, but he knows one thing for sure. He has no choice but to face what he's avoided for so long. He has to meet Seraphina. He has to at least try. He stands walking toward the window, and for the first time in years, he feels the weight of his life's choices settle over him. There's no turning back now. Theodore stares at the letter once more, the words still echoing in his head like a persistent drumbeat. You have a daughter. Her name is Seraphina, and she's 16. She needs to meet you before I die. The weight of those words presses down on him, suffocating him in a way his vast empire never had. For the past few days, he had tried to bury the thought of it all, bury the daughter he never knew existed, and the woman he had abandoned. He had told himself that his business, his legacy, his empire was more important than anything. But now, staring out the window of his penthouse office, the skyline of Florida stretching out beneath him, he knows that nothing he's built matters. Nothing but this. The choice seems simple. Ignore it. Pretend it's just another complication in the path of his success. But as the days pass, it becomes impossible to silence the nagging voice in the back of his mind. He can't keep running from the truth. He picks up the phone. Mira, his assistant, his most trusted ally, the one person who always keeps him grounded. Mr. Jennings, the team is ready for your 3 p.m. meeting with the board. We're finalizing the merger with Larson Corp. Everything's set. Theodore listens, but his mind drifts back to the letter, to the name he can't seem to forget. Seraphina. His daughter. Cancel the meeting, he says before he can stop himself. Mira's voice falters. I beg your pardon? The board meeting, Theodore repeats, his voice sharp. I can't make it today. Reschedule everything. Mira hesitates, but only for a moment. Understood, Mr. Jennings. Theodore puts down the phone, but the silence in his office feels suffocating. His thoughts spiral. The letter sits heavy on his desk. He's been pacing in his office for hours, his mind caught between two worlds. One is the life he's known, dominating the business world, controlling everything around him. The other is a life he doesn't know, one that involves a daughter, a woman who had once loved him, and a responsibility he never thought he'd have to face. That night, sleep eludes him. He tosses and turns, each thought more suffocating than the last. What does a man like him do when confronted with a life he's been running from for years? Can he even walk away from everything he's worked so hard to build? The next morning, the phone rings again. He answers without thinking. It's the letter from Jasmine. Again, not directly, but her words reach him once more, this time in a final request. If you won't come to her, Jasmine's words haunt him. Seraphina will come to you. Theodore's chest tightens. He has no more excuses, no more barriers to hide behind. He stands up, suddenly sure of what he has to do, but terrified of what it will mean. "Book me a flight to Florida," he says, his voice steady, though his heart races. "I'll meet her, but I'm not sure I'm ready for this." The reality of the decision hits him like a freight train, but the part of him that has always fought for control knows this is the only thing left that truly matters. Theodore steps out of the car, his gaze sweeping over the quiet park in Florida. The air is thick with humidity, the smell of damp earth and greenery filling his lungs. He had imagined this moment 1,000 times, but nothing prepares him for the reality. Seraphina is standing at the far side of the park, her back turned as though waiting for him, but unwilling to face him. His feet move before he can think, each step heavier than the last. His heart is pounding in his chest, a storm of emotions swirling inside him, fear, guilt, hope, all crashing into each other. He wants to say something, anything, but his voice catches in his throat. As he draws closer, he notices how much she looks like him. The same sharp jawline, the same eyes, gray like his, flecked with blue. She turns just as he's a few feet away, and their eyes meet. The recognition hits him like a punch in the gut. Her expression is unreadable, a mask of cool detachment that hides what must be an ocean of emotions. Theodore opens his mouth to speak, but the words feel foreign. What does one say to a daughter they've never known, never been allowed to know? For a long moment, they simply stare at each other, the weight of missed years hanging between them. Every second stretches out, thick with tension. Theodore wants to reach out, to say something comforting, but he doesn't know how. He doesn't even know if she wants him here. Finally, Seraphina breaks the silence. Her voice is low but strong, edged with a rawness that cuts through him. "Why didn't you want to be in my life?" The question hangs in the air, sharp and direct, laced with a pain that Theodore can't ignore. His chest tightens, a deep ache blooming in the pit of his stomach. He opens his mouth, but no words come. How do you answer a question like that? The truth feels too simple and too complex all at once. He spent years hiding from the truth, from the life he should have had, from the daughter he should have known. He starts, his voice cracking. Seraphina's eyes search his, filled with a mix of anger, confusion, and longing. She's waiting for him to say something that will make sense of the years lost. But Theodore knows nothing can fix that now. "Sorry," he finally says, barely above a whisper. It's all he has to offer. The rawness of her pain cuts through him. He has no idea how to fix this. He doesn't even know where to start. The silence between Theodore and Seraphina stretches, heavy with everything unsaid. Finally, she breaks it, her voice sharp and raw, like a wound reopened. "You don't get it, do you?" she says, her eyes burning with an intensity that makes Theodore flinch. "You think you just disappeared, and that was it, that we were fine, but we weren't." She takes a breath, fists clenched at her sides. "I spent my whole childhood wondering why you weren't there. Every birthday, every school play, every time something big happened in my life, I waited for you to show up. I waited for you to care." She shakes her head bitterly. "But you never did." Theodore feels the weight of her words like a punch to the gut. His chest tightens, guilt crawling its way up his throat, choking him. Seraphina continues, her voice trembling now, her anger simmering just beneath the surface. My mom, Jasmine, she did everything. She worked, she fought, she loved me, but she never stopped missing you. And I couldn't understand it. I didn't understand why you couldn't just be there. Theodore's heart sinks as the realization hits. He'd built his empire on ambition, on being untouchable. But in doing so, he had made himself invisible to the one person who truly needed him, his daughter. He had never known the pain he had caused, never understood how deeply his absence had cut. Mom never said much about you, Seraphina continues, her eyes now filled with sorrow, not just anger. But when I was old enough, I started asking, and she told me things I never wanted to hear. Theodore's breath catches in his throat. He leans in, his heart pounding in his chest. What did she say? She said that you were the reason she left, Seraphina replies, her voice softer now. That you never would have been able to give me the life I deserved. That your family, your power, would have swallowed me whole. She said she was protecting me from it all. She pauses, her eyes searching his face for something she probably hasn't found in years. She chose me over everything, even you. Theodore sits back, the enormity of her words hitting him hard. The idea that Jasmine had kept him away, not out of anger, but out of love for Seraphina, twists something deep inside him. She had been protecting her, protecting them from the chaos of his life. As the guilt settles over him, Theodore feels the truth of his failures crushing him. His empire, his wealth, all the things he had prided himself on, none of it had mattered. It had never been enough. All this time he had thought he was building something meaningful, but he had neglected the one thing that truly mattered, the family he could have had, the daughter he had abandoned. Seraphina's words linger in the air like a wound that refuses to heal. The pain in her eyes is too much to ignore. What would you do if you found out you had a child you never knew existed? Would you run or would you try to fix it? Maybe it's time to think about the legacy you'll leave, not just the money. If you believe in second chances, subscribe to see where this story goes. Theodore's breath hitches as he walks down the sterile hallway of the hospice care facility, the faint scent of antiseptic heavy in the air. The walls are lined with fading photographs, memories of lives long lived. But none of them belong to him. None of them belong to his past. The door to Jasmine's room is ajar, and Theodore pauses for a moment, unsure of what to expect. He spent years avoiding this, avoiding his emotions, avoiding the consequences of his choices. But now, standing outside the door, he can no longer pretend. He steps inside. Jasmine is propped up in bed, her face pale and drawn, the woman he once loved almost unrecognizable. The years of struggle, of fighting alone, have taken their toll. But in her eyes, there's still a flicker of recognition, of something warm and familiar. She looks at him, her lips curling into a faint smile. "Theodore," she whispers, her voice weak, fragile. "You came." "I came," he says softly, sitting beside her, guilt settling in his chest. The truth hits him hard. He's too late for everything. Jasmine reaches out, her trembling hand brushing his. "I'm so sorry," she murmurs, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to keep her from you, but I had to protect her. I had to protect us." Theodore looks at her, his heart aching. He's heard the stories, felt the weight of his mistakes, But hearing it from her, the woman who carried this burden alone for so many years, hits him like a tidal wave. "I know," he says, his voice thick with emotion. "I should have been there." Jasmine shakes her head, a small, sad smile on her face. "It's not too late, Theodore. She needs you now. She needs you more than ever." Theodore's throat tightens as he stares at Jasmine, the weight of her words sinking in. She's giving him one last chance, one final opportunity to be the father he should have been. "I promise," he whispers, his voice cracking. "I'll be there for her. I'll make it right." Jasmine's eyes close for a moment, as if in relief. "That's all I needed to hear. Please don't let her go through life without knowing who you are." Theodore nods, holding her hand tighter, his resolve hardening. He won't fail her. Not this time. Theodore stands outside Seraphina's apartment, his heart racing. After everything, after all the years, here he is, about to face the daughter he never knew, the daughter who has every right to hate him. When he knocks, there's no immediate answer. He waits, shifting from foot to foot, the weight of his guilt pressing against his chest. He knows this won't be easy. Nothing ever is when you've spent your whole life running from your own mistakes. Finally, the door opens, and there she stands. Seraphina, now a young woman. Her gaze is guarded, the walls around her thick and unyielding. She doesn't smile, doesn't greet him. She simply looks at him as if trying to decide whether or not to slam the door in his face. "What are you doing here?" she asks, her voice cold, measured. The anger in her eyes isn't just pointed at him. It's a defense, a barrier built from years of hurt. Theodore opens his mouth to speak, but the words get caught in his throat. He spent so much time planning for this moment, imagining how he'd explain everything, but now that he's here, none of it seems right. None of it seems enough. "I know I can't change the past," he finally says, his voice quieter than he intended. "But I need you to understand. I've spent my life chasing things that don't matter. And now I realize I've lost everything that I do." Seraphina's eyes narrow. "You think that makes up for it?" She crosses her arms over her chest, taking a step back. "You think you can just show up and say all the right things? You don't get to fix this, Theodore. You don't get to fix me." Theodore winces at the pain in her voice. The bitterness in her words cuts deeper than anything he's faced in his life. But he won't back down. Not now. Not when she needs him the most. "I don't have the answers, Seraphina," he says, his voice cracking. "I don't know how to make up for lost time. But I'm here now, and I swear to you, I will never run again. I will be here for you, for as long as you need me." The silence that follows is thick with tension, but something shifts. A subtle change, almost imperceptible in the way she looks at him. It's not forgiveness, not yet, but it's a crack in the wall she's built around herself. She doesn't say anything, but she doesn't shut the door either. Theodore stands there, waiting, knowing that this is only the beginning. The road to understanding will be slow, but it's a road he's willing to walk, no matter how long it takes. The phone call comes late one evening, shattering the fragile peace that Theodore had been clinging to. He doesn't need to hear the words. He already knows. Jasmine has passed. For a moment, the world seems to stop. He stands there in the quiet of his office, the walls closing in around him. He never imagined it would feel like this, like the weight of 1,000 regrets crashing down all at once. Theodore's mind races back to the hospice, to the promise he made to Jasmine just days before her death. "I'll be there for her," he had said. He hadn't expected to be called on that promise so soon, but now, standing in the wake of her death, he realizes how little time he really had to make things right. Seraphina calls him just a few hours later, her voice strained, distant. "Are you coming?" she asks, her words thick with emotion. "Mom, she's gone." "I'm on my way," Theodore replies, his voice hoarse, unsteady. He knows what he has to do, and he doesn't hesitate. He leaves the office without a second thought, heading straight for the hospital. When he arrives, Seraphina is standing in the hallway, her face pale, her eyes red from crying. She's no longer the angry, distant girl he met just days ago. Instead, she's a young woman, broken, fragile, and for the first time Theodore sees her not as a stranger, but as the daughter he has always needed. "Are you okay?" Theodore asks, his voice barely above a whisper. He's not sure what to say. He's never been good at offering comfort, but now it feels like the most important thing in the world. Seraphina nods, though her expression is unreadable. She doesn't say anything at first. Instead, she steps closer to him, her eyes searching his face, looking for something, anything, that might tell her he's truly here, truly present. "I don't know how to do this, Theodore," she admits, her voice cracking. "I don't know how to move forward without her." Theodore reaches out, his hand gently brushing hers, a tentative connection that says more than words ever could. "We'll figure it out together," he says quietly. "I don't have all the answers, but I'll be here for you." And in that moment, a quiet understanding passes between them. The pain is still there, raw and unspoken, but they're not alone anymore. Slowly, they begin to heal. Theodore stands on the balcony of his penthouse, gazing out over the city that has been both his triumph and his prison. The skyline of Florida stretches out before him, bright, bustling and alive with the pulse of a world he once thought was all there was. But now, the buildings, the money, the empire, none of it seems as important as it once did. His thoughts drift to Seraphina, who's just a few rooms away, sitting quietly in the living room, the weight of the past few months slowly shifting between them. They've come a long way since their first meeting in the park. The walls she had built around herself are starting to crack, little by little. She's no longer the angry, resentful girl who greeted him with distrust. Now she's starting to see him differently. "I used to think you were just a rich guy, throwing money around to fix everything," Seraphina had told him earlier that day. Her tone was softer now, less accusatory. "But I think you're trying to be something more than that, something better." Theodore had smiled at her words, a smile that felt unfamiliar, but real. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just trying to fix the next problem in front of him. He was trying to heal, to rebuild what he had lost. And it wasn't just for her. It was for himself, too. The truth was, Theodore had spent so many years running from his own emotions, from the vulnerability that came with being close to someone, that he had forgotten what it meant to love, to truly love without conditions. But now, with Seraphina, he was learning. When they had buried Jasmine just a few weeks ago, Theodore had stood there, holding Seraphina's hand, and he felt the weight of all the missed years. He didn't have the answers to make up for the past, but he was determined to keep going, to try. That was the best he could do. Seraphina had finally asked him one night as they sat together in silence, "Do you think I'll ever really forgive you?" He had looked at her, the pain of his past choices weighing down on him. "I hope so," he replied quietly, "but I'll understand if you can't." All I can do is show you that I'm here. I'm not running anymore. It hadn't been easy. It still wasn't. There were days when Theodore felt the rawness of his guilt and the enormity of his failure. But then there were moments, small moments, when Seraphina would smile at him or call him Dad without hesitation. He had to hold on to those moments. And now, as he turns back toward the apartment, he sees Seraphina standing in the doorway, her face soft, her eyes no longer filled with the anger that once defined her. "We've got a long way to go," she says, her voice steady. "But I'm willing to try if you are." "I'm here," Theodore says, his voice thick with emotion. "And I'll never run again." They stand together at the threshold, looking ahead, uncertain but hopeful. They don't need to have everything figured out. They don't need to erase the years that have passed. What matters now is what they can build together moving forward, a relationship, a future, a legacy of love. Theodore may have built an empire, but now he knows that the real legacy he wants to leave isn't in buildings or wealth. It's in the relationship he's rebuilding with his daughter, the family he had once lost and is now learning to cherish. We spend our lives building our empires, but what if all we've ever needed was right in front of us? A second chance. Don't wait. Subscribe and be part of the journey. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.